Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Companies with high-performance teams and enhanced employee engagement nurture great company culture. We must understand what is company culture as they are interconnected. A good company culture could be anything from being diverse and inclusive to providing employee perks and benefits. So let's know everything about employee performance, engagement, and company culture. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Vantage Influencers Podcast. I am your host, Gautam. Today, we talk about high employee performance, enhanced employee engagement, and how it helps nourish the company culture of any organization. And to enlighten us on this topic, we have with us Prabhash Nirbhay, an ardent believer in the power of HR to enhance performance and deliver business results. Prabhash is the founder of Flipcarbon, a performance coach and a multi-purpose trainer of repute. He has over 2 decades of experience in various facets of HR across blue-chip companies. He has a proven track record and ability in conceptualizing, designing, and implementing strategic employee communication intervention that foster high performance and high engagement culture. A subject matter expert on employee engagement, Prabhash has 10 plus years of experience in handling employee engagement surveys, action planning, and enterprise initiatives. Hello, Prabhash.
Hey, Gautam. Thank you for having me over. It's my pleasure to be talking to your listeners.
Sure. I'm great to have you with us today, and thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to having a great conversation with you. Yeah,
it's likewise this side as well. I look forward to this conversation. I think this is one topic which is very, very close to my heart, and I believe that the power of people drives performance. So I would look forward to talking to you and taking questions from you.
Wow, definitely. Then we shall definitely get some enlightening answers from you. So, to begin with, would you tell us about yourself, something that I might have missed mentioning about you?
I think you did a fairly decent job, but just to kind of set in the context in the times that I have built my career in. Mm-hmm. So the time in which I built my career in was the time when the IT revolution of India was happening. And within that zone of 2002 to 2022, I have built my career very, very differently. I have worked only in what I like to call the roti, kapra and makan industries. After completing my MBA, I started my career with ACC Cement. So that's what I like to call makan or construction. Then I went on to join the retail division, the garments division of Urban, which was called Urban Brands, and subsequently the VF Urban Brands. So that's what I like to call kapra or retail fashion. And then my last and the longest stint in the corporate was with Sam Miller India, which was almost 130-year-old organization, manufacturing some of the best beers in the world. So that's food essentially, but I like to call it roti. So roti, kapra and makan is what I have worked at. And whether, I don't know if it was by design or accident, but almost all the companies I have worked for are 100 years plus or nearing 100 years of existence. So I am also a very firm believer that a good performance, good engagement culture enhances longevity of organizations, and they can continue irrespective of what is happening around it. For example, if you look at all of these companies, they have survived a couple of plagues, they have survived 2 world wars. Sam Miller has also survived apartheid in South Africa.
Yes.
And they have continued to thrive and grow. So that's a little about me. I come from a small town with big ambitions, worked in corporate, built my own organization, believe in giving back to society. So that's how I look at myself.
Thank you, Prabhash, so much. I think your achievements are worth mentioning, and we are so great to have you with us that you can share your expertise and knowledge about this matter today. So, to begin with, having this conversation, what according to you is company culture?
So, Gautam, if I was to talk about company culture, I have 2 aspects to it, right? I would say that the action we take and the behavior we exhibit in pursuit of our vision, that to me is company culture. Now, let me explain that. A lot of people write these very fancy vision statements which go and sit on the walls, right?
Yes.
But culture is what makes that vision step down from the walls and start walking the corridors of the organization. So fundamentally, culture is what will say that vision is not just a figment of our imagination, but it can actually walk the shop floor. People are clued about it, and they are willing to walk the talk in terms of the direction which the organization wants to go forward in. So in a way, culture and vision as a combination, they are like the electricity that passes through an electromagnet and makes everything point in the same direction. So that's how I look at culture.
Wow, I think even in my introduction, I mentioned that company culture is not very complicated as what people think it is. I think it's more of understanding your workers, your employees, and, delving in the same environment, which is safe, secure, and as well as equal for everyone. I would like to believe in that as well. I don't know if you like to believe in that.
Yeah, so see, a lot of times we tend to forget that it's ultimately people who are driving the performance, right?
Yes.
And culture is an enabler of that. Culture gives you the best possible environment in which to give your best shot. Right? And while there is always a theory X and theory Y in terms of people, I do genuinely believe that most people come to work to do a good job. And if you are not doing a good job, something is definitely wrong with the culture that you have built around your organization. So I think it's the core, it's the essence of good performance. We talk about a high performance, high engagement culture all the time.
Yes.
When we talk to our clients.
So, if I were to ask you, what is the most appropriate way for any leader to improve or nurture a great company culture in their workplace?
See, I think the word leader itself talks about somebody who understands how to lead people in a particular direction. Right?
Yes.
So if you qualify as a leader, then I think you already have it in you to figure out the right routes, the right mechanism, right processes, the right actions to lead people. And we have had enough experiences across the board, whether you're talking about business leaders or you're talking about societal leaders or you're talking about people leaders in an unstructured environment. Most of them are able to lead because they have it in them. And in fact, recently you would have, I posted as well in the context of MSD taking over of CSK captain again, that your ability to lead is actually independent of what's the size, shape, nature of cohort you are leading. You will still be the same person and you still need to bring the same skills on board. But if I was to simplify this entire piece, then I would say it's like ABC. First, your actions need to speak. You can't build a culture if your actions are different from what you are talking about. Suppose what you are talking about is integrity, and a lot of people have values built in the organization, and one of the very common values is always integrity. But your values says integrity, but your actions do not reflect that. You will not be able to lead people in pursuit of a good culture because you stop walking the talk. So your action needs to speak.
Yes.
Second, the B part of it. So I will say bite the bullet. Bite the bullet on inappropriate behavior and be the person who is willing to lose performance in pursuit of culture. What I mean by that is that a lot of time you have these managers who are anti-culture. They are not really suitable to build a culture that you're trying to build, but they're great performers. Right? And hence we are willing as leaders to look the other way. Then we are not biting the bullet. We need to bite the bullet and say, look, this organization will build a culture in a particular way, and this irrespective of how great you are, we will not tolerate you if you are not aligned to that.
Yes.
So biting the bullet is also important as a leader. And the second, the C part of it, I believe that you should have a culture calendar.
Yes.
Now this sounds transactional, but culture is something which needs to be spoken about enough number of times to seed in with people. Like for example, we at Flipcarbon and with our clients, we continuously talk about high performance, high engagement culture, because we believe that it is also possible to sometimes perform without the engagement part of it, but it is not sustainable over the long term. And if it is sustainable over the long term, it reaches burnout for people. Right.
Okay.
So we always say that we need to look at it from two dimensions: the performance dimension and the engagement dimension.
Right. And I think, when you said that when the word leader is attached to you, you already have that in you. So I think, you have given a very good quote for me to use in one of my blogs. And I'm really having this conversation going with such enthusiasm that, it's great listening to you. So, and then you mentioned about high performance and high engagement and how they're interconnected with company culture. So the next question that I would ask you would depend on that how does, high performance and enhanced engagement help improve company culture? And if you could elaborate a bit on this.
So it's actually sometimes you have the cart behind the horse and sometimes the horse behind the cart. Because actually, if you look at it, high performance and high engagement is the culture you are trying to build.
Yes.
So most organizations are in the business of building a culture which has high performance as one element and high engagement as another element. Because if you have only high engagement, you are a fun and games organization not performing enough. Right.
Yes.
And if you have only high performance and you don't have high engagement, then you are constantly churning people, burning them out, creating toxicity in the environment. So one side, high performance and high engagement culture is what we are striving for. But the second part of that is also equally true. That when you are a high performance organization, people like to work for you. Most people don't want to be part of failures. They like to be part of successes.
Sure.
So when you're a high performance organization, you will attract the right kind of people, the kind of people who want to, pardon my French, but kick some ass in terms of performance.
Sure.
And so high performance will lead you to attracting the right kind of talent. Now, when you attract the right kind of talent, you also have people who are fair, unbiased, have objectivity around it, but yet empathy with them, and they can actually create a good culture from an engagement perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have high performance and you have high engagement, then obviously the culture is moving in the right direction. But the other side is also true. If the culture is moving in the right direction, you are attracting the right kind of leaders, the right kind of managers, the right kind of individuals, people who like to collaborate, people who like to pull other people up rather than pulling people down, then you will create a really robust environment which is sustainable over a long period of time in terms of high performance and high engagement. Great goals supported by great leaders in an unbiased environment ultimately is what high performance, high engagement is defined as. And unfortunately, we have seen enough of toxic high performance over the last couple of decades. So that is also possible, but then that is not really sustainable and the organization stops going after a point.
Sure. So, when you mentioned about toxic high performance, I think we have come across this term lately. And, what is it exactly and how does it relate to company culture? Because I think most of us might have heard about it, but maybe do not know much about it. So if you could tell a bit about that.
Okay. So if you look at the human behavioral dynamics, right, between two people, it can either be full of empathy, full of grace, full of respect for the other human being, full of respect for the job description. For example, I like to say that, on a per dollar basis, my office boy is more productive than my CEO,
Yes.
And you need to understand this, that look, both are doing a job and they have a job description. So one is not superior to the other, because you are paying them for that job description. So if you are superior, you're also being paid well for that. So you don't need to press your superiority in other ways. So that's where that humility of saying that, look, maybe I'm not as special as I think I am. That's the starting point of non-toxicity. But if you look at the other side of it, toxic, the simplest definition of that is when you are getting work done without due consideration to people, their physical well-being, their mental well-being, who they are as people, and their life beyond work.
Okay.
So that is where toxicity, and there are multiple examples. We are 24/7 organizations, especially when you are globally dispersed. Taking other people's time for granted. I know one organization where the stated policy is that no calls can take place after 6 p.m. on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great culture statement. But the ground reality is that they are doing 11 p.m. calls on Fridays as well.
Yes.
So you are not walking the talk, what I was talking about earlier. And then you set up things without really checking. You set up deadlines, you set up calendars, you set up meetings without really checking with other people whether they are aligned to those time frames, whether they are aligned to those execution standards. The world will continue to rotate even if you go one day wrong. But some people will stop rotating because you push them too hard.
Yes.
So that is where toxicity comes on. And then, we have this habit of making people, our team members feel guilty about time off.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we need to kind of explain why they are going on a vacation, which is a complete nonsense, in my opinion, because ultimately your work zone is actually about 250 days out of a 365-day year, right? And the rest of is your battery recharge time.
True.
Even if you look at otherwise, it says that in a lifetime, people sleep for about 25 years, So your total work duration is only 2/3 of your life, right?
Yes.
And we can't really expand that to fill every portion of your life. That is only going to lead to burnout. That is only going to lead to mental health issues. That is only going to lead to physical health issues. People not finding time to sleep, people not finding time to repair their bodies, people not finding time to pursue their passion, and people not finding time to give to their families. That's where toxicity comes in. And see, toxicity is also anti-diversity, because what happens is that some people, as human beings, our greatest strength is our ability to cope to adversity, right?
Yeah.
So some amount of stress, some amount of toxicity we can all take. But some can take better than others because their challenges are less defined than others. For example, if I have to work long hours, perhaps I can, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to a teammate of mine who has a child to take care of home, a husband who travels all the time, she will find it very difficult to cope with my unfair and unreasonable demands, right?
True, very true.
So what will happen is that you will end up creating an anti-diverse environment, because the people who cope will be your kind of people, who think there's nothing wrong with not switching off, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because
so you end up with your kind of people. You'll create clones who believe that there is some amount of joy in continuous striving for performance excellence without striving for emotional excellence as well, So, and that's definitely anti-diversity.
I think this was a very good point that you made, that, there are people who are constantly trying to, keep their bosses happy, or, not taking enough time for themselves unknowingly, that they forget that they also have a good mental health to take care of. Yeah. And when we talk about diversity or inclusion, when you mention that, there might be different jobs, maybe an office boy or a CEO, the degrees may vary, but their contributions should not go unnoticed. I think that is what, I believe in. And I think that company culture is something that we follow in Vantage Circle also, where we are small, but yet significant and very compact. So, when I would like to, when you mentioned about diversity, I would also, like to ask you that, do you believe diversity and inclusion have an important role to play in enhancing employee performance and engagement that positively impacts the company culture for any company, that is?
Absolutely. It goes without saying. So if you look at the biggest aspect of diversity is that it brings more than one way of doing things on the table. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we tend to get templatized with experience. If you have experience of a certain number of years of a certain kind, whether as an individual or as an organization, you tend to start operating in templates. There is a certain way of doing some things. And yet, that allows you to be accepting of the fact that an organization is not made up of one top performer, but an organization is made up of one top performer supported by many met expectation performers. We tend to forget that talent is not defined by just top performers. Talent is defined by all sort of performers who stabilize the pyramid. If your pyramid was made up of only top performers, it will collapse upon itself. So that acceptance of the fact that there are different kinds of people, different kinds of mindset, different kinds of thought processes, irrespective of whether you link it to gender, you link it to sexual orientation, you link it to physical or mental capacity in the traditional sense. Diversity, being inclusive, will always create an environment where the leadership will be more empathetic. And that's the core. And inclusion, if you look at it, it actually fundamentally means allowing people their methods and their pace.
Yes.
So being accepting of the fact that different people have different methods and they have different pace at it, which they adopt and employ and deploy those methods. And that is where it helps in building culture. An organization is a reflection of the society, and the society is not made up of clones. So why should the organization be made up of clones?
Wow, that's a great line that you said, because I myself work for diversity and inclusion, and I have written ample amount of blogs on diversity and inclusion, how, as to leaders can leave aside their prejudices and, biases and treat everyone as equal with equal dignity and respect. As long as, you're recognizing every employee with their differences and individual identities, I think that is what can make a great company culture ahead and will attract more diverse talent as well, so that because in this globalization era, we really need to expand. And I think diversity and inclusion is one way to expand globally.
Absolutely. And I think we keep talking about unconscious bias, right, as a
Yes.
something to watch out for. And I think as human beings, one of the best thing that we can do is that we should, put up a small statement in wherever we are sitting that, look, I am unconsciously biased.
Yes.
That awareness is the starting point of building good culture, building diversity, building inclusion, getting performance going. Because that awareness that I can be unconsciously biased about a lot of things, and that doesn't make me a bad person. That does make me a person whose awareness about biases is low. And if I can improve my awareness about my biases, I can improve myself overall as an individual, as a leader, and as somebody who's trying to enable performance in organizations. So I think one of the things we should all do is put that statement up on our list.
Yes, sure. And that is exactly our aim. Some people, due to privilege or due to, certain backgrounds might not know as to how people are different from each other. Yeah. And that is, Prabhas, you're doing a really great job in enlightening people on this. And we are surely great to have you with us today and making our listeners know everything that has been said today. So, in the end, how would you like to conclude your thoughts on employee performance and engagement? And how does it help in building a productive, diverse, and inclusive company culture?
So, I would like to conclude by making people think about how they are leading their teams. Okay. I think a large part of leading teams today is happening with a rear view construct. And if you are to drive a car looking at the rear view mirror, and if you constantly keep doing that, you are going to crash your car. You are going to meet with an accident. So the right approach of driving a car is to look at the windscreen and use rear view mirrors only for situational awareness. Right. So the rear view mirrors are for situational awareness. The windscreen is what makes you drive into the future. So become the windscreen leader, become the windscreen manager, and become the windscreen individual, and you will create a great culture.
Wow. Thank you. Your analogies and your metaphors have been really great, comparisons as to how you have related life with company culture. And I think that's a great initiative that you have been taking. And we are so great to have you with us today. So how can our listeners reach out to you if they really have to know anything about you or about your, consultancy and everything? So how would they reach out to you?
So, Gautam, there are multiple ways. One, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. So even a message on LinkedIn is enough for me to respond. You can also publicly comment on my LinkedIn posts and ask me for a response, and I will give that response. However, if you want to reach out on a one-on-one basis, you can reach out on my email ID. It's Prabhash Nirbhay at Flipcarbon.com. That's my first name, second name at my company name.com.
Okay.
So that is good enough. I don't mind sharing my number as such, but the challenge with that is that I'm more WhatsApp than voice. So if you want to reach me out on my phone, then you'll have to WhatsApp and wait for a response. And for that, my number would be 9880-535712.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhas. So now that we have come to the end of this enlightening conversation, I would like to express my immense gratitude and appreciation to you, Prabhas. And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge on employee performance and engagement and how it helps develop a great company culture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gautam. The pleasure was all mine.
Sure. And listeners, I am your host, Gautam, signing off for today. But stay tuned to Vantage Influencers podcast for more such enlightening sessions on employee engagement, company culture, and HR best practices. We will be back with more insightful conversations in our upcoming episodes.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.